Ready, Mr. DeSanto? Call to order the January 2nd, 2018 Board of Commissioners meetings. First, we'll have a moment of silent reflection and a pledge of allegiance led by Kevin Tome. Please shut off your cell phones, your pagers, and electronic communication devices, and the agendas are located at the back of the agenda. First, the moment of silence, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll have the election of officers. First, we'll have the vice chair and then the chairman. Do we have some nominations for vice chair?
Madam Chairman, I'll nominate Commissioner Hadcock.
Okay, is there anyone else for vice chair? Anyone else for vice chair?
Madam Chair, I'd nominate Mark DeSanto.
Mark DeSanto? Okay. First, we'll have Mark DeSanto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That's 3-2. Looks like, Mark, you are the vice chair. Next for chairman. Nomination?
I would nominate Lloyd LaCroix.
Lloyd? Anybody else? I'll nominate Ron Buskard. First for Lloyd LaCroix?
Aye.
Aye.
No. 4 ayes, 1 no. Lloyd, you are the chairman. If we could take 5 minutes so we could switch positions, that would be good. Thank you. Congratulations to the chair and the vice chair.
Privileged to thank Ms. Hadcock for her service as chairman for the last year. She put in a lot of extra work, a lot of time, and it's greatly appreciated with all the tough times that we've had this year. I just want to express my gratitude for all the hard work that she's done. She put in a lot of hours and gave up a lot of herself to be the chair. And I just want to take that moment to show our appreciation to that.
Thank you, Lloyd.
I'll mirror that sentiment. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the rules with the exceptions.
I'll make a motion to adopt Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised 11th edition, including any updates and amendments, but not to adopt the portion that precludes discussion of issues by the chair or precludes the chair from voting, except when there is a tie vote.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion from the public or the board? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next on the agenda.
One more motion, Mr. Chairman, if I may. A motion to adopt the Pennington County Board of Commissioners policy regarding reconsideration of action taken by the board, which is a little bit different than what is in Robert's Rules of Order.
Thank you. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion from public or board? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next is item 6, or 5, or no, it's 6. Item 6, to establish commission salary.
I'll make a motion to keep the salary the same as last year.
Second.
Been motion made to keep it the same as last year by Ron and seconded by Mr. DeSanto. Any further discussion from public or board?
Yes, I'd like to read the salaries at this point. We do take per diem. Just a discussion on, so we are allowed to take a phone per diem and a salary at 18,000, right? at $1,500 a month. Am I correct, board? And we have, Westgate has phone and then per diem at 162 this year. Barabee has no phone, but has about 4,000 in travel. LaCroix has 50 on phone. No travel, LaCroix? Nope. Santo has 1,500 plus a cell phone, and I have $25 for my cell phone as chair, which I won't take this year, and 1,500 as salary. What concerns me is people saying no on a raise, but taking per diem. That is, to me, a lot per month. $4,000 a year for the last 2 years. Mr. Farabee, you have about 8,000 in travel. I didn't take the raise. I mean, you took the raise, but you said you weren't going to take the raise. I guess I don't get it at this point. Why I made the motion back in the day to make it 1,500 is so hopefully we didn't have to take as much per diem. And we had that covered, but maybe not. Obviously, I see sometimes it's just a game. And the per diem, we do the same at the legislature as well. They get a salary plus per diem, and it brings theirs up to $12,000 to $14,000. So I tell people, look and see what your people are playing. When they say they don't take the raise, or everybody's getting a 20%, and then all of a sudden they're doing the same thing, whether it's legislature or commissioners. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, Dan Richer. Ms. Hadcock can walk her district. Commissioner Farabee takes 30 minutes just to get into Hill City.
Okay, I'm going to stop this right now. We're not going to go back and forth with commissioners and making names and so forth. We
Didn't
need,
stop it when she was talking.
I'm explaining it now for the board. We're not going to go back and forth talking about each commissioner or from the public. We're going to keep this respectful. If we have an item, let's discuss that. Let's do the issue, not the person.
Well, I got a problem if you're going to sit around pointing fingers at each other and then you're not going to stop it.
I
But
just
you're
laid
going to
down the
stop
rules
me
just
if I
now.
come up and try to defend him because he won't defend himself. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is item 7, review and approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Does anybody- It's been moved and seconded. Anything need to be removed from the public? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is Holly with the consent agenda.
Good morning, Commissioners. Holly Hennies, Commission Office Manager. For public notice, the Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. Today's consent agenda contains the following items: approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of December 19th, 2017, approval of the resolution for the Drug-Free Workplace Act certification for a public entity for 2018. Number 10 is to designate the Rapid City Journal, the Pennington County Current, and the Hill City Prevailer as the 3 official legal newspapers for Pennington County for 2018. And number 11 is approval of the 2018 poll worker salaries as submitted by the Auditor's Office.
Thank you, Holly. On these, is there anything, anybody from the public who'd like to, any of these items removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, anybody from the board? Seeing none, look for a motion.
Move for approval?
Second.
It's been moved by DeSanto and seconded by Ron for approval of the consent agenda. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next, we come to our regular agenda items, the funding source for reinstatement of services. Number one is the Security Administration Building. And let me look through that real quick.
Mr. Chairman,
Ron Busker.
I think Holly provided us information that we have 165,000 in our contingency fund. And I guess just for everyone's information, I would make a motion to take the security and the administration building amounts to 72,869, and the treasurer's wall satellite office in the amount of 7,013 out of contingency for 2018. And use those funds to reinstate both of those.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? I have a question for Holly. We have, for the security to acknowledge the record, record the need for a supplement to come from the 2018 general fund contingency budget, our general fund reserves. So you're looking for that out of the reserves or for the contingency fund?
It's completely up to the board what you choose to do. Sheriff Thomas specifically asked you to do the supplement ahead of time. In the past, boards have made the motion to acknowledge the need for a supplement and waited until later in the year to see where budgets were sitting. But he has specifically asked that you do it so he's not starting out with a negative.
Sure.
And that's, I believe, what Commissioner Buskerud's motion was, is to do the supplement out of contingency at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Either contingency or supplement. If you do contingency, it's done, there's no hearing that we schedule or anything.
Okay, and I think his motion was
Thanks, KJ.
contingency.
Mr. Chairman, and if I may, I'm doing that because, last year, how much was in contingency last year? 100,000, and we gave it all back. We didn't use any of it.
Yeah, it was higher with the courts, I believe, were in there, supplements for the courts, and then the wages that were done differently last year. But typically, we are set at 100,000, and you typically don't spend it. So the full 100,000 did revert back last year, yes, sir.
And it's called contingency for a reason, that we may use it and we may not use it.
Correct.
It depends on what happens during the year, but I guess if something drastic happens, we'll do something else. We'll supplement it then out of a reserve.
Correct.
Still gonna have about 90,000 left.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Any further discussion from the board or from the public? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to take the funds from the contingency? Indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair, one moment, I'm seeing something that I've got a question about. We, in this motion, are approving 72,000 for the security and the administration building and 7,000 for the wall treasurer's office.
We're doing
I think
just
I heard
the first one.
161,000. Are we approving the NAU security as well?
No,
Okay, so just the 72 and the 7,000.
I thought we were just doing item one. The wall's the second.
Okay, so just item one, $72,869.
Correct.
Very well, thank you.
So the motion is for the security of the administration building, 72,000 out of the 869 out of contingency.
Gotcha.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Now we get to item number 2, which is Treasurer's Wall Satellite Office for the funding of that.
I would move for approval.
I'm second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval and the funds taken out of the contingency for $7,013 for funding for the satellite office.
Mr. Chairman,
Discussion,
I
Ron.
assume that that's still, Treasurer is going to make sure that they comply with our previous motion that said they have to have the building in ADA compliance.
Correct.
Or at least Buildings and Grounds is going to check it or somebody.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we come to items from the treasurer. Janet Saylor.
Good morning. Janet Saylor, Treasurer. First on the agenda, we have the designation of banks. Pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law 7/2013, I respectfully request the Board of Commissioners to designate Wells Fargo, Bank of South Dakota, and First Interstate Bank as the primary active depositories for Pennington County. But I would like the Commissioners to be advised that we will utilize other financial institutes for short-term investments throughout the year. This is by law that we need a motion, the first meeting in January.
Mr. Chair,
Mark DeSanto.
question for Janet. Janet, last year during budget, you pointed out that you had found an institution that was better for where we were investing our money, I think is what you said, that was increasing the amount of money we're bringing in by a pretty substantial amount. Is that one of these included?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Good. That's all I wanted to know.
Thank you, Ms. Dan.
Mr. Chairman.
Ron Busker.
And kind of a little bit off the subject, but I hear that we had a pretty profitable end of last week with the property taxes.
Prepaid taxes from the new income tax laws through the end of Friday. There was $2.8 million collected for people prepaying their property taxes.
Nice.
Good to know.
Very good.
Thank you for all your hard work and your
It
staff
was-
as well, Ms. Janet.
It was interesting.
So you need a motion to,
Motion to approve.
Second.
been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item B. Public Depository Liability.
The public
Quarterly
liability
Report.
quarterly reports. The state of South Dakota makes it mandatory that we check the pledged collateral for all the banks that we are using. We get these reports semi-annually off their website. And at any time if a bank would fall below the collateralized amount according to law, then Pennington County has to cease to do business with them. That's one of the requirements under Chapter 4A. So if they don't have enough pledged collateral, we cannot keep our money with them. We have to pull it immediately. So we do check that.
You need a motion on that also.
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Mark DeSanto and seconded by Ms. Hadcock. Any further discussion from public or board? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item C, delinquent mobile home list. Jan.
Pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law 102331, on the first Tuesday in January, the treasurer must present to the Board of Commissioners a list of all delinquent mobile home taxes as of December 31st of the preceding year. I am presenting this list to you. We could not run it until this morning. If you look at the back page, it will give you the number of real estate mobile homes. There's 735. I hope the sheriff left. Thanks. That's good because it's going to be a lot of work for the sheriff. They really went up this year. 735 mobile homes, 7 are building on lease site, and 1 is a utility. Your total amounts of taxes on the real estate for mobile homes is $149,519.81. The building on lease site is $3589.56, and the utilities is $1622. So we will be doing our distress warrants here in the next couple days and sending them to the sheriff to collect.
Chairman?
Madam Chair. Ms. Hadcock.
Thank you, Chairman. So can you explain distress warrants again for people that don't know what the distress warrants are for the public?
When mobile home taxes are not paid, we issue a warrant on them, and we send all of those uncollectible, all of those mobile homes that have a distress warrant on them over to the sheriff's office. And the sheriff by law has to start working them and going out and collecting the taxes.
Okay.
If they don't collect the taxes, then they have to go through the process of selling the mobile home.
It doesn't go up for tax deed or anything?
No, mobile homes do not go up for tax deed.
Just so people were asking me that before, so I appreciate that the public knows that too, Ms.
No,
Chair.
mobile homes are sold through the sheriff's sale.
Okay, thank you, honey.
Mr. Chairman, and how does the sheriff usually do collecting those taxes?
Fantastic. Ours is one of the few counties that the sheriff has a lot of times 100%, sometimes only 2 or 3 of them he doesn't get collected. We work very well with the sheriff's office on collecting these mobile home taxes.
Thank you.
So, Janet, what percentage can you tell me? I mean, 700 is quite a bit. How many,
They're up from last year, the mobile homes.
I mean, total mobile home
I think there's
registrations?
around. See, everything changed here in the last couple years. Mobile homes used to be taxed differently, and because of the legislative changes in the laws, mobile homes now are taxed as real estate, and then when they're not paid, they're pulled off the real estate system, and they're put in the mobile home system because by law they have to go to distress warrants. So at one time there was like between $5,000 and $6,000, or 5 to 6,000 mobile homes in Pennington County, and I don't know what it is right now. I'd have to get that number from Shannon. But they are up this year, the number of mobile homes that are not collected.
Very good.
So you need a motion to,
Motion that you accept the report.
That'd be my motion.
Second?
motion made by Hadcock, seconded by DeSanto to accept it. Any further discussion from public or board? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next, we have item 14, items from emergency management. Dustin?
Dustin Willett, Pennington County Emergency Manager. Good morning, Chairman LaCroix, members of the board. This item is continued. I believe Commissioner Busker brought this up about 2 or 3 meetings ago, and just looking at different options and information regarding the USGS flow gauges on at a few sites up in the Black Hills. So I apologize, I wasn't at the last meeting. Alexa was here and she briefed me on what went down there. So at this point, I guess I'm happy to stand for any questions. If there's any further questions you have about this, or again, I'd be happy to work on behalf of the board's wishes if this is something that the board wishes to fund.
Thank you. I guess I'd kind of refer to Ron, since he brought it up, where he'd like to go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know. You know, it's one of them things you never know you need it until it's too late. So I guess I'm going to defer to a few people I've talked to and to Dustin here, and think that we probably need them. And since I've just spoken my piece, I can't make a motion, but
That'd be my motion.
I didn't
Do we
catch
have
the
a,
motion.
sorry, Chairman. So that we fund it, and what'd we say for the funding source again?
well, I would make them, I think that your motion is to fund both gauges, Castle Creek, a continuous operation, and the Rhodes Fork on a non-ice basis for $8,137, and to take that out of their contingency fund,
That'd be my motion.
which will lower our contingency another $8,137. So we'll be down to about $80,000 in that contingency fund, which still is pretty considerable.
Okay, there's been a motion to fund it, both gauges with Castle Creek continuing operations for the road fork at a non-ice only, for $8,137 taken out of contingency. There was a motion, I didn't catch a second.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Hadcock, seconded by Busker. Discussion?
I would like to make a substitute motion.
Chair recognizes Mark DeSanto.
My substitute motion would be that we fund these gauges only during high water times, and so part-time. I feel like if the USGS feels that they're so important, then the USGS should be ponying up a little more. If they want to keep them open all year long, they can pay for that part of it. But that will protect our residents during high rain periods, but the rest of the year, I don't think we necessarily need them for our purposes anyhow.
It's been a motion. Just a second. There's been a motion.
They'll have
Any,
discussion.
no second?
I'll second it.
Seconded for discussion. Now we have discussion. Someone from the public would like to speak. Is this David Miller?
My name is Richard Bell. I'm a
Richard?
resident here in Rapid, 1206 Clark Street, and I'm also here representing Dakota Rural Action, of which I'm the chairperson of the Black Hills chapter of Dakota Rural Action. And I wanted to respond to the costs because we've had a lot of discussions with Joyce Williamson at the USGS, and I think I wrote a letter on the 29th, which you guys probably are in possession of. And it was our understanding from the Western Dakota Water Development District that they were funding these two gauges in the cost of $14,785 per year. And we had several discussions with Joyce Williamson. I think it may have been after I wrote the letter on the 29th. So on the 30th, we had some further discussions with her. And in my letter, I may have been in error by saying that they're paying for half the cost. So we've had some additional discussions with the USGS. And just to comment on Mark DeSanto's comments here, the USGS would like to fund all of these gauges. There are currently more than 60 within South Dakota, and they don't receive enough funding to do all 60 gauges in the state. They estimate that it would cost over $900,000 to fund all 60 gauges in the state. So they've had to do a lot of prioritization. They support now only 24 of those 60, and only some of those partially. So there's a designation by the USGS called the National Stream Flow Information. There's a federal priorities list. The Castle Creek gauge is actually on the federal priorities list. So they fund apparently about a quarter of the cost of that. And the WDD funds the other 75% on that gauge. The other gauge at Rhodes Fork, which is on Rapid Creek, is not an FPS site and not a federal priority site. So the USGS doesn't fund any of the cost of that. WDWD was paying for 100% of that cost. So it's our understanding that the 14,785, which we requested WDWD to go ahead and continue funding, and they declined that. So we're here today asking the county to step up because we feel that these two gauges are very important to maintain. And it's really not possible to do just in high water. These are continuous monitoring gauges, and you need to be able to do it full time because you don't know when high water is going to happen. I mean, I don't want to go on about how important these gauges are, but, you know, there was a huge flood here in 1972, and if we had that kind of pre-warning signals coming in, it's very, very important to the people in this area. So in my letter, I gave you a whole list of people besides the Pennington County Emergency Management. The NOAA Weather Service uses these data. The South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources use these data. The City of Rapid City Public Works and the Water Division uses these data. The School of Mines, the Rapid Valley Irrigation District. We've talked to all of these, and they rely on being able to access these data on the website. And there's also water alerts that are automatically given when there are high water conditions. So anyway, we think it's very important for the county residents to have maintained being able to access these data. So that's what we're here requesting the county
Thank
to
you,
do.
Richard. So you're, just to be clear, you're requesting the full amount of
1,785. That's our
And motion on the
understanding.
floor currently is to do half on both.
I just wanted to correct that. I think that number is not appropriate or not what
Yeah.
we've heard from WDW.
I think you were clear on that.
Yeah. Okay.
You were asking for full funding for both because of the importance of it, but I think the board's read through all the information, so I understand.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Does the board have any questions for Richard? Mr. DeSanto?
My question would be that if we did have those water monitors in 1972, would it have saved anything? I think it happened so quickly that by the time we got the information from those gauges, nothing would have been saved.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have even mentioned that because and this is a completely different era with text messages and cell phones and that sort of thing. So I think it would make a difference today if we had that information because we can translate or transfer that information very much more quickly to the public. And so that's an issue.
And explain to me, if you know, what the reason was that WDWD decided they don't want to pay for this any longer, if it's that important.
Apparently it wasn't important enough to them. And so we, made that request to them to continue the funding. They declined, so we're out begging. We're going to talk to the city next. We're going to talk to, as many people as we can to try to get this funding back because we think it's important for the public to have the data available.
Maybe the city would be willing to come up with the half that we're not paying,
Chairman,
or that I've made a motion to not pay.
So you done?
do we, sorry.
Mrs. Hadcock?
Chairman, so do we need to switch our motion in the seconder on the 14,000 total, or Dustin, can you reiterate our total if it's?
14,785 is what the WDWD has declined to continue paying.
Thank you,
is my
Mr.
understanding.
Richard.
Just a little clarification. The
That
motion,
is-
the second motion on the floor is to cut both in half.
And to cut, so two pieces of clarification there. One, that statement is correct. The amount that West Dakota Water Development District was paying was the 14,785, and that was to keep both gauges in continual operation. The original motion on the floor at 8,137 is to keep the Castle Creek gauge at continuous operation and drop the Rhodes Fork gauge to non-icing conditions. There is an option to drop the Castle Creek gauge to non-ice conditions as well, but that's only about, it's not a half, it's only about $1,000 savings. The infrastructure in that gauge is completely different than the infrastructure at the gauge at Rhodes Fork. So the savings isn't in half. We'd have to go back and talk different numbers and different dollars to see what that final thing looks like. So 2 points of clarification there was, one, the full funding for both gauges to continually operate is the 14,785. Staff's recommendation was to drop Rhodes Fork to non-ice periods, which was the original motion. The second motion, I'd have to go back and look at those numbers, but it's not a direct 50% off the Castle Creek, because the actual equipment at that gauging site is completely different. So the cost savings isn't as significant dropping that Castle Creek to non-ice periods.
For clarification, to follow up on Ron's original motion at the last meeting, doing Castle Creek only during non-icing conditions, is that correct?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Castle Creek only during non-icing. The total was 8,000 as opposed to 14, 8,000 something.
I want to say that total, and I apologize for not having that number right in front of me. But I think that number was about right in the $7,000 range for Castle Creek and non-ice. I don't have that number right in front of me. I apologize.
Okay.
And just another point of clarification, and I can only speak to the discussions that I've had with USGS, and that is that they are partnering on both gauges.
Okay, I'm willing to, if the number is down around that 8,000 mark, I'm willing to withdraw my
It's 8,137,
8,137.
the original motion.
Then I would withdraw my substitute motion.
Substitute motion's been withdrawn. Any discussion?
On the original motion, Chairman? Is this the original now?
No, this is the substitute motion. He withdrew his substitute motion. So the original motion would be the recommendation from emergency management, which would fund both gauges with reduction in the operation of road forks to a non-ice season. Pennington County share would be 8,137, and that's recommended.
Thank you, Chairman. If I could speak on this, the original motion.
We're back on the original motion. Ms. Hadcock.
Sir, thank you. I can just say I'm disappointed in the mission statement for WDD is for protection of water quality, water beneficial use, domestic principle, and irrigation. And they're not funding something that I think that people are very concerned about. They have funded parks, they have funded local housing development. That is for a pump station. That is for a development that is a private development. But they won't fund gauges that make a difference for our water quality. I think that's kind of a disappointment for us to have to fund this through Pennington County taxpayers when I think that was set up and that people are taxed for that purpose and that mission. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Yep.
Cheryl Rowe. I'm actually a resident that lives along Rapid Creek. So about 2 years ago, January 1st, I remember it well, my stepdaughter came downstairs and said, "What's that noise?" And I said, "I don't know. Your dad's in the shower. Is that it?" "No." So then the phone rang, and it was our neighbor up the creek, and he calls and says, "Have you seen the creek?" And we said, "No." We ran outside, and it was an ice break that happened up around Hysiga. And it just blew through there like crazy. And even before we thought about calling somebody, the manager shows up and they figured out they needed to bring in equipment to clear the roads and everything. And the reason that he knew about it was because we have a gauge on one of our own properties. It's monitored. It's not one of these gauges, but it's another gauge. And so the reason that they knew about that was because we have that gauge. And so I think personally, that brings something like this home, how important it is to keep them open year-round. No partial funding, no partial data, but year-round, that we know what's going on because we have cell phones. And that's how he knew about it. He got an alert on his cell phone that said, something's going on, and he shows up. So I think it's just really important to keep them open. And we're talking about $14,700 and some dollars. I mean, with the amount of money that the water district did give to like Hysiga for their pump station, what was that, 40,000? 40,000 for that, I mean, and
25 for the Trinity Lutheran Eco Park, 53 for DNA testing in the Rapid Creek.
yep. I mean, it's, they spend their money on these other projects, and this is not very much. So I think we need to bring them to task to do their job. They're not supposed to just be saving the taxpayer a small amount of money. They need to follow their mission statement.
Thanks, Cheryl. And just a refresher, the board's making a decision on trying to fund this.
I know,
So
and I'm
we're
just
not-
encouraging you to do it, and just do the 14th, do as much as you can.
That's what-
And not to say, partial, but full fund, just have it be done. And then those guys need to be taken to task.
Duly
in the
noted.
future.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Cheryl.
Excuse me, David Miller, I represent myself. I do appreciate your time. I'll get to a couple of points immediately. It would be great if we had both gauges fully funded, but there's some confusion, and I think it would be helpful to clear it up. I'm going to explain it in a format of a short story. You raised a good point a moment ago, Commissioner DeSanto, about flood control. The gauges that are up there, they react fast. The way those little devices operate fascinates me. So creek starts to rise rapidly. They kick in and they start recording rapidly. You'll get the information fast. The odds of a flood coming out of that high are very low, very low. And I'm going to give you a quick example. The Rapid City flood peaked just downstream from Dark Canyon, 31,200 foot seconds. I mean, Noah would have just parked the ark and waited for it to settle down. But you go upstream, go to Pactola and go upstream from there. Now get this one. This is Castle Creek above Deerfield, 1972, same time as a rapid flood. Rapid City, 31,200. Castle Creek, 34 foot seconds. About the size of Rapid Creek downtown. Now, it doesn't mean that it's wrong here. I would love to see both gauges funded for a different reason. Well, I support the initial proposal. I read the Office of Emergency Management comment. I went back to a couple of friends in USGS. I'm close to that agency as a private citizen. And my conclusion was that the Emergency Management Office hit it right smack on the nose. Now, just a couple other things. I had a whole pile of statistics, and I threw them in a bin. The last thing you need is me to sit here and start reading statistics. I can't remember myself. This is a storied aquifer, the Madison is. I got acquainted with it years ago. My introduction to the Madison was brown trout down in Spearfish Canyon. And at that time, that's before the flood of the 60s. I'm getting old. I remember the flood of the 1960s. Before it took all the beaver dams out, there were brown trout in there that the muskrats traveled in convoys for protection at night. But what was really striking is if you went upstream from the beaver dams, below that string in, you went up a mile, the creek's dry. Now, if you go down the other end of the canyon, it was dry because old intake, hydro intake number 2 dried it up. The Homestake weren't the bad guys. They put it in a flume, sent it down to the power plant. There were 2 of those intakes, and both times it dried the streams up, both times the stream came back. But below that stream was really striking. You go up a mile, there's no stream. You come down a mile, you got almost 12, 14 foot seconds of water. Beautiful stuff, just, okay, quickly. I'll say quickly here, because I don't want to, it's a terrible death to be talked to death, and I know that. But I went in the canyon one after, here a couple of years ago, I needed some information about what I call booming, big boulders traveling in floods. It's quite amazing. I ran into it years ago, studying the exploration of the Grand Canyon, one of the places where U.S. Geological Survey got its origin. And I got quite fascinated. Clear back in 1871, I read a description of these explorers listening to what turned out to be big boulders booming. Well, there's a flood on in Spearfish Canyon. Away I went one afternoon. I parked the car in a place where if the highway did go out, it was quite an afternoon. At least I wouldn't lose the car. And I sat over on the edge of that stream, not far from Bridal Veil Falls, which is normally just a big channel. And sure enough, you could hear the booming. Okay, that same evening, I took off. I went upstream. I went all the way up beyond the forks of where the Spearfish drainage heads, clear up on a place called Cyclone Hill. Stopped, and I got out and listened. All the way through the canyon, a tremendous rumbling roar of the stream. It's quiet up there.
Okay,
Now, that's
David.
partly because you're in the headwaters, but there's another reason. That limestone Madison was soaking that water up like crazy. That's why it doesn't flood up on Castle Creek. Now I'll come back to Castle and I'll make it short. The Castle Creek grade is critical. It's critical because USGS is scratching their head saying, what is going on up here? We got a drainage here, Castle Creek. It's getting almost the same amount of water as Little Spearfish. It isn't flowing anywhere near that where it's going. They're finding out now that the underground structure is completely different. We got water falling in the Castle Creek drainage that's going down the west slope of the Black Hills. We got water falling in the Little Spearfish drainage that's showing up over in the South Fork of Rapid. You're talking about some really top-of-the-line scientists. What's it got to do with you and I? Castle Creek particularly, and I'm saying that not because I know that, but because USGS says that. They said, yeah, we'd like to have them both funded. They looked at the Emergency Management Office and said, what do you think? He said, you know, that's a reasonable proposal. Your EM people did a good job on that. They just got right to the point and they focused down on it. One last point. It's kind of connected to brown trout. If you go up, and you can measure water in this country by square mile. Go over and head a Little Spearfish and figure out how much water do we get a year here, and you can convert that into acre feet. Now, you can play with statistics, but there is an area above Little Spearfish, as far as we can tell, per square mile per year, not every year, some years lower, some higher. It produces as high as over 500 acre feet. That's an acre a foot deep, 500 of those stacked up per square mile. Go over to Rhodes Fork, it jumps a little higher than that. Drop over to Castle, and it ought to be the same because the difference in precipitation is so close. It's not. Castle drops clear down, way down to about 200. Now I'll take you on a quick tour. We'll fly down to the Cheyenne River
Okay,
at
David.
Edgemont.
We need to get going. What I gather out of what you're trying to say is that the gauges measure more than what the flow is.
Exactly.
It's also saying where you could have it disappearing
Yes, sir.
somewhere
Thank you.
else.
That clarifies
Okay.
it. I appreciate you asking. Castle Creek is measuring what's coming out of the ground in base flow. It's not measuring what's falling in the basin. Now, the reason I mentioned the Cheyenne and Edgemont is because all at once, here, I'll put it a whole different way, net amount of water that's going into the watershed, okay, just net amount. Go to the head of Castle Creek, it's about 8 inches a year. That's after evaporation, everything else. The Cheyenne, I got that, 8 inches in mind. Cheyenne and Edgemont, 1/1500ths of an inch. What I'm really telling you is that this little forest, which is the biggest single wood producer in Rocky Mountain region out of 16 forests, is also a singular water producer in the vast extent of the dry plains that surround it. The significance of this gauge, Castle in particular, is that it's a canary in the coal mine.
Sir, just a question if I could.
Yeah.
So you're in favor of doing Castle and Rhodes Fork fully? Because
Oh,
they're
I'm not. I'm in
okay.
favor of the Office of, I'm copying off of the
Okay.
Office of Emergency Management proposal. They got it down to it seems to me this shouldn't be in front of you, good people. Belongs back where it originated in front of the other, but that's neither here nor there. I'm
Thank
not,
you,
you know,
David.
not into personalities.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So,
We need to make a decision.
appreciate your time.
Thank you for the information, sir.
So the original motion on the floor is to operation of road forks to non-ice season and Castle Creek for the full season
Yes, sir.
with the amount of 8,137 coming out of contingency.
Yep.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with one no from Mr. Farabee. Thank you, guys. Next on the agenda is items from the Highway Department. Item A, Bradsky Road, second access, cost estimate. That's
Good morning,
Tom.
Commissioners. Tom Wilsey, Highway Department. The additional, I have all the information I gave you last week, which included the construction would be approximately 6,000 feet, and cost for it would be around 200,000 with the 10,000, which I found out I could probably get it cheaper. But that was the most of what I expected. And 25,000 for putting plans together. Had questions concerning the Bradsky Road Bridge. The Bradsky Road Bridge using federal dollars, has a total cost of $617,920. We have to pay the 20% match on that bridge, which means we will have to pay $123,584. Completion for this bridge is set for August 10th of this year. Should the commission choose to construct a secondary access from the Bradsky Road area, we feel the new road would be added to the highway system, including also the 1,300 feet on Backcountry Trail, which is along the section line. That'd be another 1.38 miles in length, and we figure approximate annual maintenance cost would be around $7,600. Stan, any questions for us?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one
Wrong
question. Are we gonna, every development that's out in the county, are we gonna build them a road to it? And spend $7,600 a year maintaining it? Is that gonna be our new policy?
That would be up to you folks.
But that's what you're suggesting.
I am not suggesting, I'm just saying that's what this cost would be.
Have we ever done that before, to your knowledge?
Are you familiar with that, Mark?
Mark Schock, Pennington County Highway. No, not as far as I know that I remember we ever built a road into a subdivision area.
And
Chairman, so.
Ms. Hadcock.
Sorry. I didn't make- So I had asked you last time, is this a priority? And I think Mark just told me the answer.
That's right.
It isn't a priority because we've never done it before. And it's an area that we've just spent about 700,000, 600,000 on a bridge for that section
We will
of
be
road as
spending
well.
617,000, yes.
Yes, sir. So, thank you.
I'm going to take a moment just to kind of explain where this come from, if that's okay with the board. This originally come forward, I think, from, we had some concerned citizens over the bridge and the weight limit went down. And so this is where this all originated from. And Mark and I worked on, and you guys did an awesome job of getting in there and re-supporting the bridge to get the weight limits up. And then the discussion started coming about a second access in case of emergencies and so forth. So I just wanted to clarify, that's how we got to this point, was originally the bridge. I got one question, but I'll see if Mark has.
No, you go ahead.
My only question was, and part of the concern was why this come forward was, they thought the $90,000 to build a temporary, crossing over there to prepare the bridge was a waste of money. My question is, could you even take that 90,000 to do that? Because it's federally funded, it's earmarked for a bridge, it's not even feasible, in my mind, to be able to take that and use it for something else.
I talked with people in Pierre about this, that since this is federal monies, the process would be, we would have to do an environmental assessment for the roadway, which would take, and he said anywhere from 9 to 18 months to get it done. Then the project, we'd have to follow their guidelines for buying the right-of-way that we would need for that project. And we would have to let the project, we could not do the work ourselves, which is what we've been proposing if we do it.
Okay, that answers a lot of questions from me right
We're
there.
looking at a 2-year delay on the bridge,
Okay,
minimum.
I'll refer to,
That's out of the question.
no further questions?
I just have one more.
Ron Busker.
We have to remember that bridges by statute are our responsibility. Roads to developments out in the country are not our responsibility.
Very good.
I think that's it. There's no discussion on it. Is there any further discussion from the public or from the board? This was just informational as far as,
We are requesting that the commission to advise if they wish us to proceed with the proposed project.
a request in the motion.
That was our motion we were asking for.
Whether to proceed with
That way,
surveying or not.
survey it and the plans preparation and everything else.
I would make a motion at this time to cease moving forward with this.
Okay. Motion been made by DeSanto and seconded by Hadcock to cease. Any further work? Any further discussion?
Roll call, please.
All in favor, signify by aye by roll call.
What are we voting on?
We're voting to cease
To cease
the moving forward with trying to figure out how to build this road at this time.
Hold it. To cease figuring it out?
What do you say?
No, that was your motion?
To not move forward.
Quit trying to move forward.
Thank you.
Let's go down roll call.
Yeah, roll call.
Buskerud,
Aye.
DeSanto,
Aye.
Farabee,
No.
LaCroy, Hadcock,
Aye.
and LaCroy.
Aye. So
Thank you.
motion carries 4-1 to cease. Thank you guys for your work on this. Next on the agenda is approval of the vouchers.
Move approval. Sorry.
$2,694,627.11.
Move approval.
Moved by Hadcock,
I'll second it.
seconded by Ron. Any discussion? Hearing none.
Sir, excuse me,
Ms. Hadcock.
is our salaries and stuff on this voucher by chance?
I have no idea.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
So I'm saying 2 noes.
I voted aye.
Okay. No from DeSanto and Farabee. Motion carries. Items from chair and commission members is next on item 17. Do we have any items from the chair or commission members? Any commission members have any items they'd like to discuss?
Yeah, I have a request, been asked by the Fair Board if I could be on there, if that's okay with the board, but I know we're having assignments, but it'd be a preference.
Okay. Any further discussion? No items from committee or chair. Next items are committee reports. I will say that we have committee assignments to be presented at the next meeting, so Holly's put those in your boxes. Fill them out and turn them in so we know which committees you'd want. Probably figure out your schedules and see which ones work best for you and kind of put that down in there too. But otherwise, if committee reports, does anybody have anything to report?
No, but I would like, if I could, try to do night meetings if I could at this point. Being chairman last year, I appreciated that very much, but it would be nice to be able to have meetings at night since I do go to my committee meetings. Thank you.
So that seems like an item we should put on the agenda at the next committee meeting, or next
Committee assignment.
commission. Well, I think what she's talking about is she wants to have discussion on night meetings and day meetings.
Oh, gotcha.
Or 9 o'clock, is that what you're saying?
So just for committee assignments,
committee.
because of my schedule and stuff,
Oh,
running a
okay.
business
Commission
and
meetings.
different things, so,
Sorry,
sorry.
I took it as commission.
No, that's okay, Commissioner LaCroy.
Okay, so keep that in consideration.
Thank you, sir.
With no other reports, we're moving along pretty fast. I think we're going to have to take a break. Well, let's take a moment and recognize John. I know we said we wouldn't do that till the next committee meeting, but I'll just recognize, you don't have to get up. John Morrell, our new HR director, is here. Today is his first day.
You might want to come to the podium just so the public can see. Sir.
Hi,
Morning.
Morning, John.
I keep forgetting about the
Morning,
TV
John.
screen.
That's okay, Commissioner LaCroy.
John, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm sure glad to be here. It's good to see you all again.
Good.
So, thank
Welcome
you.
to Rapid City.
Welcome to the cold. Maybe we could go into executive session since we have a half hour. Is that okay with the board?
We good.
Sure.
Fine with me.
Move to go into executive session.
Second.
Jay, do we have one or two or?
Oh, do we have to name?
Tonight, my knowledge, we only have the one up for personnel, so motion should be to go into executive session for personnel.
Personnel. That's okay with the motion maker?
Yes, and second is okay.
Okay.
Are we making a decision on that issue today?
I believe we are.
Okay, so Commissioner Farabee is not in that executive session today since it's about him?
Oh, I don't know how that works.
Jay,
Okay.
if we're making a decision on a commissioner today, are they allowed in executive session?
Correct. That's.
They're
up
not,
to
or
you.
they are?
It's up to
I'm
us.
sorry. That's what I thought the personnel matters about.
Okay, last time when we had this issue, he was not allowed to come in because it was our decision as four commissioners. He'd be voting on his own issue.
That wouldn't be appropriate. I think we should just go into executive session.
And then discuss it. Okay, thank you.
Motion's been made and seconded to go into executive session. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Is there
Make a motion to come out of executive session.
Second?
Moved and seconded to come out of executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We're out of executive session.
Did we make a motion in executive session by chance?
Not.
Okay, so we did nothing to help an employee. It's the second time on Mr. Farabee's issues. Malicious conduct. Okay. Yeah, I bet I'm out of order.
Yes, you are.
Yep. Let's not protect the employees.
You're out of line.
I bet I am.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to issue a private reprimand on a personnel matter.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded to make a private reprimand. Personnel matter. Any discussion?
I'll be abstaining. I'll have nothing to do with that motion. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries with one abstention. Next on the agenda,
I make a motion to go into a Board of Adjustment.
Second?
moved and seconded to go to Board of Adjustments. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. PJ.
Sure. PJ Conover, Director of Planning Department. Item A, under Board of Adjustment, is request for approval of a building permit for Robert Fuchs. Fuchs? Sorry. Okay.
Bob, I'll let you discuss a little bit before we get started.
I'm Bob with the Firehouse Brewing Company, Bob Fuchs, and I thank you for your time and consideration of this building application permit. Firehouse prides itself on being a great neighbor and team player to downtown Rapid City. This building permit is important to the Firehouse to continue our growth in our business. Unlike chain restaurants on the interstate, our partners live and work right here in Pennington County. The permit will help to get tourists off the interstate and into the downtown business core of Rapid City. Before starting this project, we diligently researched the laws and guidelines of Pennington County and South Dakota and provided engineering plans that complied with the letter of the law. And I ask for your approval of this permit as requested.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve the permit by DeSanto, seconded by Hadcock. Any further discussion from anybody from the audience, planning? PJ, do you have a comment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I recognize PJ.
Sure. The applicant applied for a building permit to put a plane on a pole at their existing billboard. If you can see in this shot right here, this is the existing billboard, and there's a fire truck behind it, which is actually covering the hole which was built to put the plane on the pole on. Per our ordinance and our signed ordinance, section 312, and it's also indicated in our memo. It says a vehicle or trailer of any form or type, whether licensed or not, in working condition or not, intended to be used as or in conjunction with an on-premise or off-premise sign, shall not be located adjacent to any public right-of-way or on private or public property so as to be visible from the public right-of-way. Vehicles or trailers whose primary use is other than the outdoor advertising shall be exempt from this section. The applicant indicated that this plane on a pole is to be in conjunction with the existing billboard which is on the property. This is kind of what I assume the plane on the pole is going to look like. This is the one in Wyoming the applicant and I spoke about. The applicant has been forthright with us about everything that we know of up to this point. He said that the intent is to be in conjunction with the existing sign where the smoke jumper stout is. He also had stated that he believes he wants to take advantage of what he perceives to be a loophole in our ordinance. Our ordinance does not define vehicle. But it does specifically say a vehicle or trailer of any form or type, whether licensed or not, or in working condition or not. In Black's Law Dictionary, one of the definitions of vehicle is a conveyance that transports people or objects. This was not a building permit that our office could approve. And that was also in our memo. It was, again, applied for as a building permit, not as a sign permit, and is being treated as a building permit, therefore was denied.
Thank you, PJ. Anybody from the audience would like to speak on this? Anybody from the board? Seeing none. Motion on the floor is for approval. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries on a unanimous vote.
I voted for it just because I think it's kind of cool, the one in Wyoming.
I do too. The fire truck was cool, Bob, but
Not that it's
plane's
legal.
even- Nice sign.
I had some comments too, but we voted on it, so I'll just let it be. But next on board adjustments is item B, consideration of variance VA 17-04 Black Hills Raptor Center, Davis Engineering / agent, continued from last meeting. PJ.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion. Sorry.
Moved and seconded. Any comments from anybody from the audience?
Sorry, Mr. Lloyd.
None. How about the Board of Commission? No comment?
Nope.
PJ, did you want to share any?
No, nothing additional.
Okay. Motion on the floor is for approval. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with 1 no from Mr. Farabee.
Merry Christmas, folks.
We need a
Job,
motion,
Raptor Center.
motion to come out of Board of Adjustment.
Second.
So moved.
Moved, seconded, moved by Adcock, seconded by Ron. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries out. We're out of Board of Adjustments.
Consent agenda. The Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine planning and zoning items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on a regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. The consent agenda for planning and zoning contains the following items. Item C, first reading and public hearing of ordinance amendment OA 1702 from Pennington County to amend sections 103, sections 205B17, sections 212B12, section 507B, and section 511, and to add section 320 of the mining operation to the Pennington County zoning ordinance. This has been recommended to be continued to the January 16, 2018 Board of Commissioners meeting. Item D, second reading of Major Plan Unit Development Amendment 1709 from Bighorn Canyon Ministries Incorporated. Perry Lewis as the agent, and approval has been recommended.
Thank you, PJ. Does anybody from the audience like any of this pulled from the agenda? Consent agenda? Seeing none, how about the board? Seeing none,
Motion to approve C and D, please.
motion's been made and seconded to approve C and D. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. We're at the end of, oh, no, we have regular agenda items.
Regular agenda item C is request to refund penalty fees for Greg and Lisa Lorzell. Lisa Lorzell was acting as the agent on behalf of her brother, Mr. Wachowski, I believe. Wachowski, thank you, who was before you several times. This was the gentleman who had the greenhouses that he was using for his personal use and for his hobby. Some of the road work that they were doing, it was perceived by Ms. Lorzell that it was going to go over 10,000 square feet. The work that they had started was under 10,000 square feet, so by ordinance, they were still okay. Since that time, they'd still been under 10,000, and the construction permit had been approved, but they had paid the penalty fees just in case ahead of time, and with that being approved and them not going over 10,000 before the approval of the building permit, she's requesting the refund of the $250.
To refund the 250.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the penalty fee. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, PJ.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, PJ.
Yep.
Happy New Year.
Next on the agenda is item 20, items from the public. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak? There's only 2 of you out there. Seeing none, and we've done executive session,
Motion to adjourn.
and motioned to adjourn,
Seconded.
seconded to adjourn. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.